What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Men of Means movie reviews. We are going to be looking at different movies that are in theaters now and looking at the gospel themes that can be found in them. For our first one, we want to go with A Quiet Place, starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. I want to let you know that there will be some spoilers in here, so if you haven't seen it, we're going to be talking about it a lot. So, but for now, Danny, would you give us the background of what this movie's about without giving away too much?
There's really one big premise, and that is a family who's living in this post-apocalyptic era. The family has to be silent, or creatures will haunt them and or kill them. So that is kind of the basic premise of the movie. I think you can kind of glean that from anyone who's watched the trailer. You can probably tell that that's kind of the vibe. I found it. Any type of movie in this genre is my kind of carrying on. So I was very excited, and I did a lot of YouTube binge watching of videos and how they made it and interviews between John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. He kept saying family. And then when I watched the movie, it was just that. It was really just that. And I wouldn't take all your kids to see it. But it is definitely...
It's family oriented, not family friendly.
That's true. It is very family oriented, and there's elements to it where you're rooting for the family that kind of scare you. Like you want the family to really succeed and survive.
Yeah. I'm not a hard person. Took some prodding and some pleading, but Danny got me to go. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did. It was a great film. Weird thing about it is the silence in it actually creates more suspense than having like a weird, eerie soundtrack to it.
That's true.
I spent most of the movie with my hand over my mouth because I just didn't know what was going to happen. There was a lot of the gospel theme involved in it. Like Danny said, it was focused on the family. If you look at the movie as the parents as God and Christ, with John Krasinski really being the Christ character, and us as the children, the dynamics between the parents and the children are very much related to how we as Christians relate to Christ. Yeah. We're scared. We don't often want to listen. We do things that make every situation worse. Really frustrating. Yeah. Ultimately, I hope saying John being the Christ character doesn't give away too much. In this silent world, his one child has a disability, and he spends so much time trying to create something to help this child with their disability. Ultimately, what he creates helps them in the very end of the film, along the lines of Christ doing what he does and then provides us with what we need to be saved and to fight the forces and the principalities that we are in battle with now. Yeah.
I'm just going to talk about the movie, skip me if you have not seen it. Just to say, we're saying John Krasinski and Emily Blunt because there are no names in the movie. John is the father, Emily the mother, and then there's
wow, really?
I guess like 3 kids or
there's a couple kids.
There's a couple of kids. Some come and go. Is you kind of see the sacrifice of a father, right? And you can, like he was talking about, you just kind of see how there's this point in the movie where John has to make a choice. In his eyes, you can see that there's nothing more that he wants to do but to save his children, right? And so he makes a very hard decision that encompasses everything that Christ is, and just kind of this selfless, reckless love for his children. Come to find out at the end, everything that John had been doing for his child who had a disability, he wasn't receiving it, right? And it wasn't until the end, after the big sacrifice, she realized, wow, he had done all of this for me. If we can kind of step back and look at this from a literal perspective of the grace that God has given us, some of us, we don't want to accept it. We hold guilt over our head. We walk in shame sometimes. We don't feel like we're good enough for a purpose or promise. When we finally really sit down and think about the sacrifice that God has, the sacrifice of Christ and him dying on the cross, we can really say like, wow, he did all of that just for me. And there's this really passionate part where he's telling the child, I love you. I have always loved you. There was a moment where she felt like she was not loved because
choked up.
Yeah, you know what I mean? There was a moment she felt like she wasn't loved because she wasn't getting the same attention, right?
Because she made a mistake at the beginning of the movie.
Right, and so she was walking around with this shame, right? And it became anger. It hardened her heart towards her father. And her father was like, bro, I love, you know, he was telling his other child, like, I love her. Yes, it was a difficult situation that happened, right? A huge mistake happened at the beginning of the movie. And she walked around with shame. And I don't think maybe John the father, he didn't do a good job at explaining it. We just focus on the young girl. We focus on the child. She walked around with shame. She was upset. She was mad. And she never understood that true love until she had to face her father. She had to face the reality of the sacrifice that her father made for her. And it all clicks like, yo, like, wow, like God, you know, my father has done something so amazing and selfless for me. Then that drives her to, in a way, not spread the gospel in the movie, but to fight on behalf of everyone else, because she knew her purpose. She knew how much her father loved her, and she felt this sense of worth, even though the sacrifice is kind of rough. She felt this sense of worth to now, you know, kind of walk in this purpose that she had all along, but she kind of just, she was in her feelings. She was kind of in her flesh, if you will. At the end of the movie, it's just this powerful moment of like, all right, the enemy is coming, right?
Yeah.
And we just gotta fight. The work that my father did for me, it's not gonna end there. It's not gonna end where I left him, where I last saw him. It's now in me. That same power that was in him is in me, and now I'm gonna fight.
Now that you talked about, I'm gonna talk about it. There's a scene where he's trying to give her this thing that he has worked so hard to help her with. Yeah. She is just so frustrated that every time he gives her something, it doesn't work the way that she wants it to work.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel like it helps her. He just keeps saying like, please, let's just try again. She goes, no, it never works. And he's like, that doesn't mean we stop. I'm gonna keep giving you these things that you need, even if you don't want them. At the end of the movie, she realizes that this thing that he keeps working on tirelessly, even though she felt like she didn't earn it, even though she was frustrated, even though she thought he didn't love her. Before the whole him leaving happened, you know, he tells her how much he loves her and her brother and how he's always loved them. And if you don't get choked up at that point, bruh, it just reminds me so much of how much we take for granted and the gifts that God gives us that we don't recognize until the moment we realize why we've been given the things that we've been given. Just how much God loved us to endure so much punishment, so much anger from us, and still go forward and do the thing that he had to do, so that we could live, to honor him and do what we were called to do. A great movie. I thought this movie was impeccably done. Every detail, every shot, like they don't, like you said, there are no names said in the movie, and it kind of makes you feel like you're a part of the family. There's no like backstory. You just kind of have to learn as you go. It really makes you think and analyze the movie while it's going on, and in a way that most movies don't. John really makes you think in this movie. And I appreciate it. You know, it made me feel anxious and afraid, obviously sad because I almost bawled my eyes out like a child. So the movie is amazing. The movie is absolutely incredible.
It is, and it's crazy to find those small, you know, representations. And I don't know if John and Emily are believers. I don't know. I love watching them though. Now I have this anyway. But I just like watching the interviews about the movie. I don't know. I like getting that inside scoop behind their mind, the way they were thinking about the movie. There were so many messages that we found in the movie. I don't know if we're being too churchy or whatever, but I mean, I think anybody with some type of Christian background can really pick up, like as you were talking about, the gift that John gave her at the beginning. It was the same gift that she didn't want to use, that was able to defeat the enemy. You think about so often the gifts that we are asking for, it may not be packaged in the way that we want it, but I guarantee the gifts that God gives us is meant to defeat the enemies that may be in our lives. It was just a really, really impactful movie. Besides the Christian kind of principles you can really kind of pull from it, just well done. You really cared for each and every character. You wanted them to succeed. The movie ended like, okay, like, you know, I felt good.
Yeah.
About the longevity of this family. So,
until the batteries wear out.
You kind of felt, I mean,
you're like, all right.
Yeah, like they're good.
Let's do it.
They're good. Yeah. They're good.
Overall, if I were to give this a rating, I would say 4.5 out of 5. The only knock on it is that I don't like feeling anxiety when I'm in a movie. It made me feel things like that. So, but you know, for it being a horror movie, that's probably the highest rating I will ever give a horror movie. So, yeah, 4.5 out of 5 for me.
I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a 5 out of 5.
I get it.
It's
worth it.
Yeah. It was good for people who are like afraid. I probably would. People are kind of like, it doesn't bother me that much, but I don't prefer it. I would go and just really hang on to the family moments. This is not your upper echelon of horror movies. There's not a lot of gore. Thank the Lord, praise God.
It's more suspenseful.
Yes, more of a thriller. You know. So it definitely keeps you on your toes.
It does.
And yeah. So like I said, I give it a 5 out of 5.
That being said, guys, that is our review for A Quiet Place, an amazing movie. All props to John and Emily and the Cheerins. We definitely recommend it.
Absolutely.
The gospel is littered all over that movie.
Sprinkle pepper.
And all over the movie. So go see it. But as always, guys, we appreciate you watching the videos. You can find us at Men of Means with a Z on Instagram and Twitter. Men of Means Podcast on Facebook. We write for Sending Thoughts blog. And we are on Ramp Radio every Friday at 6 p.m.
That's it.
So, guys, like, subscribe. So, guys, if
okay. Well, guys, please continue to like, subscribe, and share this video. Stay tuned for more content. We love you. We appreciate you. We're praying for you. Continue to keep us in your prayers, and we'll talk to you all next time.